there's a disconnect, one that we've known about for a while, but perhaps underestimated. Remember how some Americans were against Obamacare but for the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare?
And I've actually spoken to one person, this was years ago, that didn't understand the difference. So one thing that I learned with this election, and I have to learn how to just calm down, okay? Just be cool, calm, and collected, okay? There's a lot of idiots out there. Yes, I know we at least know 5 of them, okay? You put a room of 20 people, I guarantee you 13 of them are going to be dumb as a bag of bricks. If you know somebody who's as dumb as a brick can be, put a brick in emoji of a brick in the comments. I would love to see if you know somebody dumb as a brick. But when it comes to that, sometimes I have to understand that people are not ultra hyper engaged in politics like myself. You know what I'm saying? Watching this 24/7, reading articles, reading books, history books, information, what's going on in the world. People are not doing that, and because they're busy. I got to learn how to kind of understand that. But then that's where it's my job, and maybe yourself, to take those people who are not Trump supporters. Those, most of them, about 80% of them, are dumb as hell, dumb as bricks. But the other 20%, I think, just sees the highlights, see some clips here and there, and then make a voting decision based off that. Those kind of people we need to take aside and educate. You know, nothing too deep. You don't have to get down to the nitty gritty of economics, but just lightly push them in a direction of facts, numbers, information that can actually have someone think of like, oh, that's how that happens. You know what I'm saying? So let's go ahead, watch this video, and let's have that conversation.
Are people stupid? Great question. Surprisingly, the answer is mostly no. The American people aren't stupid. I mean, some people are stupid. And while a lot of them are apparently pretty racist and sexist, or at the very least don't care that they voted for a very racist and sexist guy, it's not exclusively that either. People are, however, generally very ignorant when it comes to politics. Like, a lot of us, including we here at the Shody, often forget that most people aren't weird political nerds. And I think after Trump's first victory, a lot of people just assumed that Americans, when faced with what was presented as an aberration, would become more involved. But it turns out that Trump did the opposite of that, at least according to the data we have. Partly because he wasn't so much an aberration, but rather an extension of and permission slip for the Republican Party. But by the end of his first term, the majority of political posts on Twitter, an already niche sample, came from just 10% of users. So that's a fraction of people. Meanwhile, most people at this time were either casual followers of politics or completely checked out. By the end of 2023 and at the start of the election, everyone was exhausted by politics and had a generally negative view of both candidates. And hey, they weren't wrong. We can argue until we're blue in our sexy faces that the reason politics got more exhausting is because of Trump, but Americans weren't paying enough attention to listen, because people are busy. They have kids to raise, dogs to walk, cats to be dismissive of them. They work all day at the office or dildo factory or Lockheed Martin or all three. They watch Grey's Anatomy. There are over 20 seasons of that show, and I have no idea what it's about. I assume the genitals of some guy named Grey. To be clear, I'm not being dismissive of these hardworking dildo factory workers obsessed with a fictional man's penis, but rather I'm being dismissive of me. Of us, of political junkies who can oftentimes forget that most people aren't as plugged in, and in fact want nothing more than to tune it out. It's Joey Pants in The Matrix, eating the steak, ignorance, bliss, etc. You've seen the film. So that's all to say that kissing babies apparently still works in this country. Not literally, babies are disgusting, but it turns out that if a mediocre or perhaps terrible white dude in a suit simply speaks with authority and acts like he has a plan or the concept of a plan, he can bullshit his way to win an election. Obviously, there's more to it, and we will get to all of that. Nothing is ever one thing. But for example,
and just to cut in, hey, I'm sorry, I know you guys were enjoying that, but just let me just chime in just real quick. That is 90% of the conversations I would have with people on the internet, and more importantly, when I was out there working with people, they couldn't tell me policies. They couldn't tell me what he stands for in regards to the economy, how he's going to fix inflation, none of that. Just like you said, like Trump he's going to be tough on the border. You know, he's going to fix immigrant, like just saying it, but not really knowing. And, you know, once again, like you said, like, maybe that's my fault because I'm so tuned into it, reading all this boring shit. But at some point, when are people going to be held accountable for the shit they're supposed to know? Because just like Phil DeFranco said, you may not fuck with politics, but politics is going to fuck with you. You know what I'm saying? So you don't want to be caught in the middle and you're like, wait, what happened? What is he doing? I have to now leave the country. For what? You know, don't be that person. So, hey, let's continue.
It seems like most Americans don't know anything about how the economy works. Why would they? It's money and math. That's two of the worst things ever. You can explain all you want that the rate of inflation is going down, or that the president doesn't control gas prices, or that certain decisions might look good but create a sense of false prosperity. But all people see is what's in front of them right now. And right now, everyone around the world is unhappy with inflation and taking that out on the incumbent leader. In a way, there's not much to be learned about losing to Donald Trump because this is currently just a worldwide phenomenon. That people are unhappy about inflation and incumbent leaders are getting voted out. It could have been Lindsey Graham up there. All you have to say to most people is that the other person, the one in charge now, is why things are expensive. And you have a plan to help the economy, and that the plan is good. Even if, get this, the plan is actually very bad.
and that is the thing I trouble with most, is that there were 74.7, give or take a few, people who voted for Trump because they felt like Biden did a bad job. And they felt like they were doing better under Trump, even though he's the one who screwed up COVID so bad that millions of people died, millions of jobs were lost, thousands upon thousands of businesses were permanently closed. And he lost to Biden in 2020. He did that bad to where he lost his second term, but yet he has a plan to help us, even though the numbers don't reflect that we need much help from what Biden was already doing. But he's telling people he has a concept of a plan. You tell me how that works. So am I being too hard on individuals who just don't really know? No, I'm not. You need to be informed, guys. There's no excuse to being misinformed in voting for something like Trump.
The National Retail Federation estimates new tariffs could cost Americans billions, raising the price of a $50 pair of sneakers as high as $64, a $40 toaster to $52, a $2,000 mattress set.
First off, who's buying a toaster for $40? Man, you better get something off of Amazon, $20, bro. Don't do that, man.
Up to $2,190. A CNBC analysis says among the most vulnerable to tariffs could include retailers like Five Below, Wayfair, and Dollar Tree, brands like Yeti and Crocs, and of course the customer.
How fucking stupid is it that voters who specifically said they were very concerned about inflation voted for a man that explicitly said he would do a thing that would make prices go up? That's not my opinion. That's just what tariffs will do. They are taxes put on imports into the country that the business importing the goods would pay, and would then pass that increase onto the consumer in order to still make a profit. Trump is proposing a 60% tariff on imports from China, so like all the stuff he sells, and a 20% tariff on imports from everywhere else. And so, for example, if Walmart wants to sell the next PlayStation console, they have to purchase a bunch from Japan. Not to mention that a lot of video game consoles are manufactured in China. In fact, this isn't the first time Trump tried to do these tariffs that would directly hurt the gaming industry. So if Trump does finally implement his tariffs, Walmart will have to pay way more for those PlayStations and would in turn have to sell them to us for an estimated $1,000. So why would Americans vote for a guy who wants to impose tariffs that would cost them nearly $80 billion a year? And not just vote for him, but specifically support tariffs? It's probably because they don't know what tariffs are. And it seems that no one explained it to them well enough. Take this with a grain of libertarian think tank salt. But when the Cato Institute asked 2,000 people if they supported tariffs on blue jeans, they said yes, so long as they didn't have to pay more for the jeans. That's like saying you support railing cocaine off of Santa's red hard so long as you can still get a good night's sleep for church in the morning.
Okay, okay. First off, I only watched like 2 minutes and stopped the video so I can have a genuine reaction. That was weird. Once again, if you guys are not used to this, it's informative and it's funny. So you know what? I don't condone any of the weirdness that he might be saying. So let's continue.
This is just one of many examples of people voting directly against their self-interest. The Teamsters, if you recall, refused to endorse Harris or anyone, which is wild. But I guess it's a hard choice for them. On one side, there's Biden and Harris, who literally bailed out their pensions back in 2022. And on the other side, there's Trump, who has literally supported firing striking workers and whose administration repeatedly went after unions and will now likely continue to do that. Don't get me wrong, Biden also did some bullshit and then tried to fix that bullshit. But the choice here is still pretty darn clear.
And even to add on that, he has Elon Musk as his right-hand man. No one cares about JD Vance. JD Vance, I think, has been shipped to another country. Honestly, I haven't heard or seen from him, but Elon Musk has been known to treat his workers like trash, union busting, and everything that you can imagine when it comes to a boss treating their employees like shit. So once again, why did people think that was a good idea? And now Elon Musk has his own secret position in government where he doesn't have to be vetted, doesn't have to have any qualifications. He's just there in the government talking to world leaders and stuff. Like, why? Why and how? That is my question. So, well, I just don't get it. Just don't get it.
Like, you would think that the deal we have with our government is very simple. If politicians do good things, we will continue to keep them in office. We're their boss, after all. And a good boss recognizes and rewards good work. But what we're learning is that this apparently isn't true anymore. We have broken that contract, which might be one of the most disheartening things I've ever said out loud. And I've said a lot of words. There's a disconnect, one that we've known about for a while, but perhaps underestimated. Remember how some Americans were against Obamacare but for the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare?
And I've actually spoken to one person, this was years ago, that didn't understand the difference. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a trick someone played on me, and I wasn't paying attention, and someone said, who's the better team? Denver or they said the Broncos or Denver. And for a second, I had to think, like, who is better? And I then it hit me. They're the same thing. It's the Denver Broncos. So like, once again, people are very ill-informed. Not because they just don't care about they just don't know. And people like myself need to do a better job reaching those people. Hey, let me teach you. We can take this journey together. I'm learning myself every single day. But if we're going to be voting, you need to understand the gravity of that, the importance of that, because you can let the wrong individual into that White House and they can set laws, legislation that can have impacts on generations. Look at Nixon. Look at Reagan. Oh, that motherfucker. And just look at it. It has affected so much. So we need to get people to care. Not just like, oh, it's fine. No, get them to understand and care. Okay?
There is a long history of people seemingly voting against their best interests because of ignorance. Much like how there were states and voters that chose to protect abortion rights and still voted for the guy who endangered them. There is going to be a long and exhausting examination of these split-ticket Trump voters in this country. AOC has already started reaching out to them because there are people who voted for her and Trump somehow.
If you voted for Donald Trump and me, or if you voted for Donald Trump and voted Democratic down ballot, I would really love to hear from you.
Good idea. I hope she runs for president in the future, assuming that's still possible to do. She will win. Even if you don't like her, I'm sorry, folks, she's gonna be a president one day. So while a lot of the answers she got varied,
that would be interesting.
A common thread,
I hope so,
was that both she and Trump felt real and were seen as outsiders from the establishment. And so, never mind that Trump definitely isn't those things. That's what people perceive him to be. His bumbling bullshit and obvious lying is seen as authentic, and he presents himself as caring about the working class, even if he doesn't. It's the same reason why there was a crossover with Bernie voters and Trump voters. An authentic man or a con man. They're the same! As we've said, Americans are sick of partisan politics. At least that's what they say, despite polarization indicating that they engage in it. But they say they are sick of both parties, and they are sick of the establishment. And so it would be really, 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 really stupid, perhaps if you were running against Trump, to lean into how establishment and status quo your party is and how it represents both parties that everybody hates. That would be very, very, very... Are Democrats stupid?
Hey, yes. The answer is yes. The establishment, these folks right here, the establishment are very stupid. So, like we just watched, it is extremely important that we understand how misinformation can misguide people. And to me, like I said at the top of this video, that is the major reason why Trump won. You know what I'm saying? All the craziness, all the rhetoric talking about, immigrants and, how they're taking all the jobs, killing all the kids, and how the Democratic Party wants to trans all your kids and turn your school into like some weird like stripper party or something. Like, it's a lot of weird, crazy things that is being pumped out there every single day. But the only way to really combat that is if we continue, people like myself continue to put out correct information that has truth, that has data and historical context. That is important. And you have to understand, if you're operating within standards and morals, and intellectual integrity, and having that moral honesty, you 9 times out of 10 will not be on the wrong side of any conversation. You don't have to know everything of everything at every time. Just make sure you're being honest. You're looking at what you can and making an informed decision, such as voting, which is extremely important because we know the repercussions of the wrong vote today could have repercussions that can last decades. Look at, not Rogan, Reagan, Nixon, like folks like that fucked up a lot of things that we are still seeing the effects today. Hey, thank you guys for watching. Once again, I highly appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to watch my content. If you guys want to support me even more, go ahead, become a member. Check out the perks that I set aside for you, such as early access, one-on-one conversations with myself, and even cool emojis you can use in the comment section. Once again, I highly appreciate the future members and you guys even taking the time to watch the content. And like always, let's have that conversation.